Welcome to the Bill Walton Show, featuring conversations with leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, and thinkers. Fresh perspectives on money, culture, politics, and human flourishing. Interesting people, interesting things.
Welcome. This is the Bill Walton Show, and I'm here joined with Stella Morabito and Sarah Walton, and we've been talking about political correctness and identity politics and how corrosive those two things have become in America. And we've been talking about a lot of the bad things that it's causing, but we haven't really talked about lines of action where we might do something about it. So Stella, we've talked about the identity politics, and we're being driven apart by categories so that we no longer see ourselves as individuals, souls. Mm-hmm. Have you been thinking about a line of action, how we put this genie back in the bottle?
Oh my goodness. Well, I do have some ideas. I don't know how easy they are to put into action, but one of the things that I think is really important is for people to get an understanding of what's really going on inside of themselves when, for example, they self-censor. That what's really happening is this fear of being socially rejected if they express their opinion, even as somebody who might be a friendly acquaintance. Just everybody's like walking on eggshells. So I think it's important that everybody somehow learn laws of mob psychology and how that works on us as individual human beings, how we become we gravitate toward groups because, of that fear of being isolated. And so if we could learn more about how propaganda operates on us, and how agitation and political correctness. So I used to run a little book club just on that theme alone, and it was really lively. And I think it'd be great if, not necessarily big, long books, but, if people could read selections that deal with these kind of psychological manipulations, selections from books and literature and even movies.
You steered me towards George Orwell. He wrote something on the English language and politics.
Politics and the English language,
and then he also wrote something on Newspeak. I'm not sure I quite understood everything George was saying, but it's, he was onto something. 1984, he wrote it in 1949.
Yeah, how these things become habits.
Yeah.
How we, it becomes like a social habit.
Well, also what Bill was talking about, virtue signaling. We might go to the fireworks for the 4th of July, and I'm sitting next to someone I don't know, and they immediately criticize Donald Trump. Is this, and then I don't want to say anything to be polite.
Right, but then you are assumed to be on the same page. A lot of times that happens. When people think there is a majority opinion in a society, and they believe that they have the majority opinion, they'll go up to a perfect stranger. I know, like in say a Whole Foods in Seattle, and just start yammering on, about their lefty political view, and when the person might not hold those views, but they just make the assumption, and so that's how these things start getting, society just kind of gets saturated with these ideas that we just assume everybody agrees to, and then you'll have people say, "Oh, I feel so alone," when they hear somebody else, as they say, "I thought I was the only one," and so another thing I was telling somebody in an interview a while back about this is learning how to behave in situations just like that. And obviously you have to be careful you don't lose your job. Things are getting really bad now, but one-on-one is really key in all of this, affecting a ripple effect. Because when you get right down to it, all totalitarian regimes try really hard to prevent even one-on-one conversation.
Right.
I mean, they may have Power elites may have control of all the outlets of communication, but what they don't have control of yet is your personal friendships and your personal conversations.
Well, one thing I would want to dig into, you talk about totalitarian regimes. I don't necessarily think of the United States as a totalitarian regime. I mean, people who hate Trump think it is, and people who like Trump thinks the totalitarian regime
Right.
might be the left. I mean,
Right.
how do you see those stars
But
aligning
it is like
here?
boiling the frog.
Well, there's a totalitarian impulse.
Yeah.
And like we talked about self-supremacy earlier.
Yeah.
There's a totalitarian impulse. I've forgotten where I read it. Like there's a little Stalin, inside everybody that needs to be,
a
and our
little
founders
Stalin?
knew a little Stalin that needs to be, controlled, right? And so we've got checks and balances. We have, a culture that, has, respect for the rule of law and due process and all these things that try to keep that in check. But when you have free for all, like the Equality Act, that I thought when you put it, they want to be the only authority.
The only
right?
authority.
Then you're going down that path. I guess what I'm saying is it's a trajectory. It's a path.
And it's not just thinking. Then it leads to dividing up the pie and cronyism.
Exactly.
Who controls the wealth of society? Didn't de Blasio or someone say, there's a lot of wealth, it's just in the wrong hands? There's...
He did say that.
Yeah. Not his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, or to be controlled, and that's and you get back to the social credit system also, divvying things up based on your compliance and conformity with that system, and we can't expect change overnight. We have to work toward the kind of getting back to our first principles, but. It doesn't happen overnight, but I think, go ahead.
And a lot of shocking ideas are getting to be normalized. I mean, that's the thing. If you can't say with comfort, I'm a woman, that's pretty basic. There's so many, they're trying to make so many ideas that used to be shocking, not shocking. I think when Nancy Pelosi, who's Speaker of the House, says, I don't want Donald Trump impeached, I want him in prison. You don't get to imprison him. He has to have a trial first.
Yeah, and she's making the assumption that,
Yeah.
they're the
But I mean,
authority.
the standard language is getting so vulgar, for want of a better word. I mean, what is acceptable public utterances, we would have been, if we were in school when we were kids, we would have to leave for 3 days to be punished, right?
Oh, you're just talking about the vulgar language.
Well,
like
not
it
just
is.
but the vulgar ideas, the
Oh, yeah.
hateful ideas
Yeah.
that we're all supposed to just listen to all the time.
There's no balance. I think that's what's going on too. In addition to that, there's no balance. I mean, there's this idea of individualism to the point that I get to define not just my own biology, but how you have to relate to me based on my perhaps fluid identity. So you've got to keep track of, whatever pronoun at whatever moment. But you get a world.
Yeah, well, that's where I think you draw a bright line, is you simply say, well, you can decide you want to be who you want to be, but I don't have to decide to agree with you.
That's right.
But then you're triggering me, right?
Well, I know I'm
Yeah.
triggering you, but that's, this whole.
No, but yeah, and so yeah, it leads us down a very dangerous trajectory.
What does woke mean?
Oh,
Where did it come from, the word?
Oh, I think I think it came from, if I'm not mistaken, a Black reference to being aware, but I don't know the whatever literary background. But now
If
using
I wanted
that
to be,
as
if I
woke,
aspired to be woke,
yeah, you're politically correct.
what would I want?
No, you basically don't think for yourself.
I
If you're
see.
quote woke, you don't think for yourself. You are politically correct, and you just kind of make sure that you're going wherever the wind is going. That's what it means. I mean, according to those who, are in charge in academia and Hollywood and
Oh, with
media.
academia, I was wondering why we don't start now saying the endowment funds of Harvard, Princeton, and Yale should be taken over by the government to be spread out, because that was the beginning of white male privilege, right, Harvard?
Hey, might as well, yeah.
And don't they have something like a couple of $1 billion in endowment?
Sarah, don't give people ideas.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Now, it's a mess out there. I mean, but part of the problem is we kind of fell asleep at the wheel. I think
Right.
people, we're so used to living in a free society.
Well, that could go away pretty quickly.
It could, yeah.
Hey, let's talk about, we talked about this last year, ritual defamation, and
Yeah.
why it's so, we talk about being shamed in our individual life where you're not supposed to hold certain views,
Mm-hmm.
you're not supposed to offend people by saying you like Donald Trump or something like that, which I think has become hate speech, saying you like Donald Trump.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Brett Kavanaugh went through something called a confirmation hearing, but you called it ritual defamation.
Right, yeah, it was mob scene. It was nothing but a mob scene. Yeah, it was circus. Ritual defamation is a term that is based on an essay written by a man named Laird Wilcox. I think it was 1990 or 91. And he is civil libertarian, Kansan. And it was very interesting. He brought up, and I can't name them all now, but 8 principles of ritual defamation. I mean, the ways in which it works to destroy a person in a society. And you saw a lot of it, say, in Stalin's reign of terror, but writ smaller in the United States during the Kavanaugh hearings. You could see how, based on no sense of due process or rule of law, somebody can just come up and out of thin air make an accusation. And the best they could do, I guess, was he was a teenager and then he was at a party, and Christine Blasey Ford said that he assaulted her, but nobody else who at this party even remembered the party that even happened. So it was just kind of this idea that believe somebody, well, a woman, because she's a woman.
Women never lie.
And 30, 40 years later or whatever, is a sign that we're kind of headed down a pretty bad trajectory. And so with ritual defamation, all of the characteristics of it, it's usually done maliciously, and it doesn't matter. You can't even answer to it. You're not supposed to answer to the charges. You're just supposed to let the charges stand. No matter what you say, it's not about debate. It's about destroying somebody. And then it spreads out so that anybody who has
and then
anything
they put
good
it out,
to say.
if you defend yourself, they put out a study that says, well, people who defend themselves are always guilty.
Right. So that's right. You're kind of in a little imprisoned cell there, and set up for defamation and humiliation and whatever else. But and then there's guilt by association,
Right.
as well. And the kids, if the person has kids or friends, they'll start distancing themselves because they're so it. Like I said, it really pollutes human relationships. Political correctness, ritual defamation. We're talking about identity politics, but ritual defamation is one aspect of agitation,
of the whole machine,
propaganda,
yeah.
agitation.
Yeah.
It's a part of agitation, right?
Okay, well, any final thoughts?
Yep.
Stella?
Well, I just think awareness, will
Yeah.
help kind of definitely help bring us
We're going to
through.
start a different kind of woke campaign.
How about the golden rule? Treat other people the way you'd like to be treated yourself. What an idea.
Well, what they do is they flip that on its head. Treat me how I want to be treated. and you don't matter.
Yes. That sums it up.
Well, that's another happy thought to end on. Anyway, thanks for joining us on the Bill Walton Show. Stella Morabito, Sarah Walton. Interesting conversation. I don't think we've quite gotten to the bottom or the solution, but we're getting there. So Stella, thank you.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to seeing you again. Sarah,
Thank you.
I'm sure I'll be seeing you again.
Hope so.
Thanks for listening. Want more? Be sure to subscribe at thebillwaltonshow.com or on iTunes.